What caught your eye?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
Well, this one, this happened last week. Well, it's been going on for, they think, 15 years. But two sisters.
Oh, they think. Okay.
So there's two former school cafeteria workers, Joanne Pasquarelli and her sister Marie Wilson, were charged with stealing nearly $500,000 from the New Canaan school system. They were the cafeteria gals. And one worked the middle school and one worked the high school. And at the end of the day, they both controlled the till. But they would never tell anybody at the end of the day. They said they would count the money. So the other people who worked in the school cafeteria would leave and they would count the money. And over the last 5 years, out of the high school, Ms. Wilson got, they think, about $350,000, and her sister out of the middle school picked up $127,000 over the 5-year period. And
What?
yeah. So kids would pay for their lunches or pay for cookies or milk or whatever they're getting, and they were skimming a little bit every day. So it wasn't like they were taking a lot of money. So
What do you think the skim was?
well, so they're saying they think that this has been going on for at least 15 years. So both of them were arrested. I love this. They were both accused, both arrested last Monday. The one of the sisters said that the only thing I'm guilty of is feeding a hungry child who had no money. I might have given away a cookie or two over the years. And then the other one said that she would never do this sort of thing. I don't live a double life. I know better. That's their defense. So they said this occurred over such a long period of time because it was such relatively small amounts. The district was unaware of the discrepancies. Of course, this is New Canaan, Connecticut, where it's a very affluent town. They didn't miss the money, obviously. Can you imagine? You miss $500,000.
Like, where are the checks and balances on this, right?
So they said it wasn't until recently that they put in a new collection and depositing system at the cafeteria where they started realizing that there was some discrepancy in the in what was brought in and what was coming in and what was going out. So they said since they've left their jobs, the average cash register at the middle school, for instance, was always below $40. In the last 2 weeks, it's over $150. So they were figuring they were taking $50 to $60, $70 a day, both of them, over.
Did they leave their job before the charge was levied?
No, the
against
police
them?
came to arrest them. They got let go, and they said they're being charged with theft, and that's when they said they didn't do anything.
But then after they left, the registers began showing a daily take of $150 or something.
Instead of 40 or 30.
When they were there was okay.
So, but that's the tough thing, is they're trying to prove nobody saw them take it, but they know the money's missing. They're the only ones who counted it. Since they've been gone, the money now money's coming back up into the.
Do they have the
system.
right to somehow
Maybe they're serving
check,
bologna
like,
sandwiches.
savings accounts, or this could all be cash in a bag somewhere, right?
Oh, it's okay. It's all cash.
Oh, you can't. That's going to be so hard to do that, to prove that, right?
Both of their attorneys say that there may have been some irregularities, but they know right from wrong. They're both released on a $50,000 bond. Joanne 61, Marie 67. They live in Stratford, which is another town in Connecticut.
They attend this Shakespeare Festival on a regular basis, and they have medieval costumes that are very
Can
expensive.
you imagine? So anyone who doesn't know, New Canaan is really a tight-ass town. It's probably one of the wealthier towns in the country.
Yeah.
So you could just see them saying, I'll take $50, $60. And they said one of the sisters would always, whenever large bills came in, she'd come and take them because they wanted to make sure they weren't large bills in the register. But they could never account for where the money went.
I'm remembering back to our school days when we paid for things. There was just like a change, practically a cigar box.
Well, now I'm thinking it probably happened everywhere.
Well, let's hope not, and let's hope the honor system reigns supreme. But I just remember being very crude. And I don't remember you could ever make a fortune off a 15-cent little milk thing. Sometimes if you brought your own lunch, you had your milk money.
No, but if you figure the average cafeteria worker was making probably back then $2-3 an hour.
Yeah.
And if you could take $5 a day, $10 a day, right, for the week, that's an additional $50 times how many weeks and over
52,
how many years.
Yeah. I'm just having a complete sidebar to this. Is we had a cafeteria. Now we went to separate middle schools because our towns merged at the high school level, but Memorial was my
wealthy
middle
kids
school.
went to prep school.
But we were public. And in our lunchroom, we had a red light bulb that was up near the ceiling, and there's a switch. And the rule was that if an assistant or a teacher was in there monitoring lunch, and if things were unruly, they would flick that light bulb. That red light would go on and off. And the rule was, supposedly, the principal had an identical red light bulb in his office. And when they did that,
principal was coming.
He was going to come on down and stop things. Well, one day, John Sheehy, the troublemaker, who I love John Sheehy, he was great. He and I are sitting at this table. He goes, Nash. I said, what? He goes, I was in the principal's office the other day. He goes, that red light does not work. It doesn't work. He goes, it's not connected to nothing. He goes, it's connected to nothing. And I said, are you sure? He goes, yeah, I'll prove it to you. He goes, food fight. The whole room goes crazy. And this woman's flicking the thing, and people are throwing those ugly wax beans. Remember those yellow wax beans? She's getting pelted with beans. Kids are screaming and laughing. The bulb's going, the flash. Nothing's happening, right? Eventually, someone wanders into the room, like a teacher, and like, what's going on? Oh my God, we got to get the principal. That's my little
The red
story.
light was a farce.
It was a total behavioral control farce. They told us that, and we believed it until John, who knew the principal's office quite well, might I say.
So you Middlebury kids just had a little light. We had some very
Did you have sophisticated?
very strict monitors. I remember Mrs. Files and Mrs. Parcell, and if you were out of line, you get cracked in the head, or she hit you with a ruler, or she pulled you by the hair, pulled you by the ear. There was no messing around. There was no roughhousing. There was no nothing. We had no red light.
We had the sophisticated.
You were the Middlebury
switch
kids.
with the red
light.
That light's going right to the principal.
We were just afraid we were going to get whacked.
All right, that's a little far afield.
Do that.
Far afield. So, what caught my eye was a movie that I've never seen before, and I should have, because I laughed from start to finish. I think you will too if you can find it. It's not really easy to find. It's not really available anymore. I found it used somewhere. I ordered it the other day. We were having dinner at a friend's house, on a friend's apartment on Friday night, our friends Ed and Rafat. And after dinner, which was great, they're like, okay, you get a selection of movies. We're going to watch a movie. And they had some. And then they said, how about Die, Mommie, Die? Now, have you heard of this movie?
No. Is it a spoof?
It is a send-up of I would say, Mommy Dearest, All About Eve, like a send-up of all those kind of Hollywood, those starlet movies, right? So we're like, well, let's watch Die, Mommie, Die, starring Charles Busch. Now, do you know Charles Busch?
No.
He's a female impersonator, and when he does impersonation, he does like starlet, like big Hollywood style.
When did this come out? Do you know?
You know, I want to say it was either 2004, maybe.
Oh, it's newer.
Or it could have been the late 90s, 98.
Is that him as a man?
That's the act. That's Charles Busch as a man, and then there's the poster for Die, Mommie, Die. I think that was from the Sundance Film Festival. Charles Busch plays cabaret siren Angela Arden, no longer in love with her husband, Philip Baker Hall, who's hysterical and is disconnected from her children, in an attempt to escape her marriage so that she can be with hunky layabout Jason Priestley, who shows up in the movie. She poisons her husband. When she begins to suspect that her daughter and gay son are also sleeping with her paramour, Jason Priestley, and they in turn begin to suspect their mother had a role in their father's death, everything begins to fall apart. It's got elements of Bette Davis movies in it. It's got elements of Joan Crawford. I mean, he imitates that whole
Did you
stuff.
watch the whole movie?
Start to finish. Could not stop laughing. At the end of the movie, the back of my head hurt from smiling and laughing so much. There are hilarious lines in there. And then Bob goes, I remember Charles Busch. Well, Charles Busch did a play he did several, but off Broadway, he did a play called The Lady in Question. It was hysterical. It takes place during World War II, and there's a scene where they're escaping the Nazis in the Alps, and they had these skis nailed to a board, and the board was angled. And the actors, her included, him as this, and they go back and forth. And we remember, and then they shuffled something from the ceiling to make it look like it was snowing. So it's this campy, funny, but Die, Mommie, Die. If you can get a hold of it, you're going to die laughing. John, I think I put a trailer in there.
I haven't heard of this.
The most unusual motion picture in years, starring Charles Busch in Die, Mommie, Die.
It looks like Mommy Dearest.
Yes.
Screen siren Angela Arden. You've heard the rumors, you've read the gossip, but now for the first time, the real story can be told.
Your mother is a sorceress.
She's a witch. Nothing but trash washed over the Canadian border.
Prepare yourself for a shocking tale of blinding ambition, forbidden love, and murder.
Kill mother.
All captured in color and told against the backdrop of sensational Hollywood. And introducing a new star in young Mr. Jason Priestley.
You and I made some heavy promises, baby! Get out!
Yes, Angela Arden's back, and she's ready for her close-up.
This time, it's for me, for me, for me.
So I think you get a good idea of
Hagen.
what we're doing with this.
Cole Hagen.
So I highly recommend that. Thank you, Ed and Rafat, for introducing us to that. It was a very successful
There's
night.
a movie you didn't know.
It's got, Tim, it's going to be a movie that once you see it, it's going to rank up there with Mommy Dearest, with Grey Gardens. There's some great lines in it. And Charles Busch does a great job as this Angela Arden, so hysterical.